Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast, a space for nurturing the ecosystem of business, body, and living. What would it be like if you gave your body a leadership role in your business and chose greater happiness every day? These are the conditions that create a healthy biome and a thriving business. I'm your host, Heather Nichols, and I'm so happy you're here. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. We're going to play with some body and life and creation stuff. And the topic of this week's podcast is warping the line. What the hell does that mean? It's a term that we use in the Bowspring movement practice. I just finished a private that I was doing with Desi Springer, one of the creators of Bowspring, and we were talking about this. We were actually doing this really intricate, detailed work with my foot, and actually reinstating this arch in my foot that most people don't even know is there. It's like this little area between the big toe, like just below the big toe mound. It was absolutely amazing because the entire thing, like changing that little, like reinstating an arch in that little part of my foot, translated up my entire leg, and it changed the alignment of my whole leg, my hip, where my femur bone is resting, and my hip socket. I mean, just some really incredible stuff. And we were talking about, this is one of the things that we do in Bowspring is we warp the line. So we do a lot of, like, if you're watching this on video and not listening audio, I can show you doing like self-sculpting work with Bowspring, where you're literally like pulling, a curve into your neck, or doing like putting a curve into your waist, or mounding your glutes so that your booty, kind of gets lifted and not as flat. And it gets, actually, talk about a Brazilian butt lift. You can have a natural one if you do Bowspring. It's amazing what it does to the booty, because it's about lifting the butt and bowing the belly and bowing the neck and reinstating the curves in our body. And the amazing thing is that I always love to look at how things in our body translates into everything. And because our bodies are such a physical representation and manifestation of us, our psyche, who we are and how we show up in the world and all that, and how we create things. And if you look at the linearity of the world, how people function with business and money and relationships and everything. I just had a parenting, I was on another podcast talking about parenting. I mean, even parenting, there's a lot of linearity to it in this world. And anytime I've tried to function from linearity in my life, this leads to this, then do this, then do A, B, C, D. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. And linearity in our bodies actually also, for me, at least for my body, doesn't work. I did a lot of yoga. I did a lot of Pilates for many years, and traditional kind of standard practice yoga and Pilates tend to be very, very linearizing to the body. And I was very strong yogi. And yet when I started doing Bowspring and practicing with holding my body more in a curvaceous way, there were all of these areas of weakness that I did not know were there. For instance, I used to be able to balance on one leg in yoga, no problem, straighten the leg, lock the knee out, do all these things, everything's straight. But when I started doing it with Bowspring, balancing on one leg with my butt lifted and, my belly bowing long and all these different aspects, it was like I couldn't do it for even a short period of time. And that's one of the things that the Bowspring movement practice does, is it really highlights our weakness, both physiologically, structurally, and neurologically, because it's very connected to the fascia, which is very connected to the nervous system. So it highlights our weakness, and so that we can change it, so that we can get out of it, so that we can actually have a different reality with our bodies, a more aerodynamic, anti-gravitational kind of structure and sense of moving in the world. And that's one of the things that has really shown up with my body from this practice, is this very springy, light sense of being almost weightless as I move through space. And there's more and more of that all the time. But I've had to really warp the line in my body. And I feel like I'm really just beginning with this. It's been over a year since I've been practicing Bowspring. And it gets you out of the linearizing of your body and your life into the curvaceousness of it all. And the amazing thing is, I saw a video the other day of a huge room full of all men doing this practice. It was so beautiful. And so men, actually, the first live Bowspring class I took, there were more men in the class than women. It was really cool. So it isn't just a class for women. It is a class for all bodies that would like to have more ease, more aerodynamicness, more curvaceousness, more of a sense of a different type of structural integrity than what we've previously known. And if you look at it's a very primal kind of movement. So the practice of Bowspring, to me, always feels very primal. And I love that about it. I love how I feel very sort of like my roots, like very, ape-like or something, in a good way when I'm doing Bowspring. Because you're like curving, your butt lifts and your ribs get big and wide. And, we're bringing this curve back into the neck and back into the belly, and everything is like rounded, and nothing is ever straight. We never go straight in Bowspring. And when I look and even down to like these little hollows and arches in my feet that I didn't even know about, that when I reinstate those arches, those hollows, when I warp those linear lines in my feet, it can change my entire structure. And I'm absolutely marveling at what's happening in my leg and my hip right now because of this little tweak in my foot. It's just incredible. It went all the way up to my knee. It unwound stuff in my knee and my calf. It unwound stuff definitely in my foot, and all the way up my thigh and into my hip and my sacrum. It was like, whoa. So this practice is very much homeopathic, and it a little goes a really long way. What would it be like to live like that, and I see, to me, it's like the way we move our bodies, the way we hold our bodies in space, the way we are with our bodies, it has a direct translation to our experience, to how we feel in the moment, to our energetic reality. And then that translates into how we create in the world, how we show up in our relationships. And if you look at even just like hold your body really straight right now, really linear as you're listening, and you're going to feel a certain energy, a certain kind of emotional experience. If you try to keep your body on a straight line, which is not actually how your body was designed. It's designed to be very curvy. Our spine has a double S curve. And we have, hollows in our elbows and our wrists and in behind our knees and in our groin and our armpits and all these places where there's hollows and mounds all over the body. And we reinstate those in this beautiful way with Bowspring that allows your whole body to come back online in a totally different way. So it's like if you linearize your body and try to eliminate those mounds and hollows, those the curvaceousness of the natural curves of your body, then it creates this rigidity in our structure that translates into a rigidity in our lives. And for me, like after I've been practicing and I've got this sense of curviness and, everything feels very lubricated and alive, and my fascia feels really healthy and vibrant and all of that. It's like the way I can show up in the world, what I'm willing to create, the courage that I'm willing to have moving forward in my life. It's like, it's amazing, the difference. And so let's talk about linearity and non-linearity when it comes to business and creation. Because there is really, I think for anybody listening to this podcast who is, you might consider yourself a seeker in the world, somebody who is interested in doing something different. The linear way of doing things, I know for me, part of it was that it just never worked. Like I tried, I was like, okay, I'm not a linear person. I mean, I didn't even have that awareness cognitively. Excuse me. So, I wasn't a linear person, but I was like, all right, well, I'm going to have to force myself to do things linearly to, make my life work. And so I went to an Ivy League college and I tried to do linear education, and that was really hard for me. I was able to, I graduated and I did fine. I got decent grades, but I really had to push myself and kind of override what was, what was true for me, to get that to happen. And I learned some really cool things. I studied some amazing stuff that is just to this day such a gift. And then I after that I tried to go get a degree in what to go get a job in what I had a degree in, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I got a glimpse into the business world I was basically applying for design jobs in architecture firms, and there was just no way that I was gonna do that. I was like, I cannot function linearly like that. And so I went on a meandering path, and I'm still on that meandering path today. And it's been so cool because I've found so many different things along the way. And it's like, turning over stones and going, oh, check that out, and all these different pieces of like different things have just like cropped up in my life along the way. And it's like, oh, here's a new awareness. Here's something new, but none of it has been a straight path. And you can look at that with how you create. You can look at that with your finances. Like, have you ever planned a budget very, down to a T, and then tried to execute said budget, and probably didn't work. Like, budgets are very interesting. They don't tend to really be something that we can uphold. You can create some financial awareness and kind of financial planning by looking at your numbers. But if you try to stick to a budget, I don't really talk to people very often, or maybe ever, that are like, yes, I made a budget and I stuck to it, but that's linear reality. It doesn't take into account all the other pieces of the beauty of the universe and the beauty of creation and what's available in our world when we just stay present with what it is that we're asking for and what we would like to create. Like, it doesn't take into account any of that stuff that would allow us to actually just receive, and business is actually so much about receiving. It's so much about receiving and allowing ourselves to thrive and allowing our business to thrive as a result, and allowing our businesses to be in support of us. And this is where I really would, kind of make that connection again to warping the line, to getting out of the linearity of structure with our bodies into this beautiful tensegrity of structure that is about fluidity and curvaceousness and this like movement of things, like things constantly moving in our bodies. It's like if we allow that to be the case with our businesses as well, then what we can create is so dynamic, and it's so much easier, and it makes so much more sense to people like the seekers of the world. There are people in the world that can absolutely do the linear thing, and they're fine, and they don't ever like ask questions, or they never really go to they never have to they're just, they can do linearity, but if linearity doesn't make sense to you, which for most seekers of the world it doesn't, then we have to give up so much of the beauty of ourselves and what we know to try to make it work. And it's kind of like when I talked about, I used to be able to do yoga really great, like linear one leg balances, and it's like I could do that, but I had to, it drove this pattern of weakness into my body because there were all these places that I wasn't ever having to use in my body, all these muscle groups and different ways of organizing my structure. I was never challenging myself to use those. They were actually atrophying through a linear practice. Whereas with Bowspring, you go into a curvaceous practice, which is aligned with the natural structure and the spiral, the directionality of our bodies and how our bodies move and where they move and where energy wants to move. And you move in a way that is aligned with that, and you strengthen every single aspect of your system, not just your muscles and your physical body, but your fascia becomes healthier and more viscous and less hard and adhesed, and your nervous system becomes more pliable. And when our nervous system becomes more pliable, we have the ability to adapt. We have the ability to have a lot of flexibility, a lot of agility, to move in between things and systems and people and creations and all of that. We have this ability to really adapt in that way, and our bodies become like so much stronger and more pliable and smart. Bodies are smart, and when bodies have this sense of tensegrity, of like holding themselves up from the inside, from the outside in, the sense of like holding your body in this beautiful integrous way that allows your body to expand from the inside out. It's amazing what our experience can be like. And translate that to your business. It's like being flexible, being adaptable, being able to move between things, being able to innovate. I mean, if you look at that wonderful pandemic that we had years ago, the businesses that thrived were able to shift on a dime. That's what I would call agility. In the movement world, that's agility. Agility is the ability to move quickly between things and still have a sense of like integrity. And so an agile business actually has this innovative capacities and innovation as a part of its culture, really, that allows businesses to move quickly. And I can think of a few businesses that I know, my business included, and some other businesses that once it was clear during the pandemic that things were going to shut down, it was like, boom, go to Zoom, set the systems up, like have the agility to go, okay, this isn't happening right now. if we try to keep going down this path, it's not going to work. So we need to adapt, we need to change, we need to innovate, and we need to adjust. Boom, let's do it. Here we are. And there's a real like fluidity to be able to move between things like that with grace and relative ease that allow your business to have this beautiful adaptability in the marketplace, to be able to adjust to changing conditions. I mean, right now we have a lot of economic stuff going on, and it's like, what if you could get creative right now and innovative with what is occurring in the world and use that, because there's never, like, your business doesn't have to go down because the economy is. If you have this like, if you're not in the linearity of trying to make something work, you're willing to warp the line, you're willing to have this mutability, moldability, flexibility, agility, innovative process, innovative way of being with your business, then you can look and go, okay, cool, let's explore what's going on in the world and what's being asked for right now. What are people asking for? And let's use that. Let's use that to innovate into a new future, a different future. Let's evolve into a different future. And, a classic example, I think I've probably used this before on my podcast, is Kodak. The company Kodak, when photography started, they were an absolute, they really were basically a monopoly back in the day when photography was done, with film rolls and printed photographs. Kodak was, standard. And as digital photography began to take hold in the marketplace, Kodak refused to adapt. They stayed linear. They're like, this is where we're going. This is our future. We're not straying. We're not warping the line. We're not straying, And they basically, I don't know if they're still in business, but they definitely are not a world, they don't have a corner of the market like they are, like a massive monopoly on the market like they used to. So that is what happens when we refuse to warp the line, when we refuse to innovate, we refuse to get creative, we refuse to ask questions and wonder how we can use these circumstances of the world and to our advantage. And there's something so beautiful to me that I just love. I love cultivating the strength, the agility, the flexibility, the mutability in my own body. And for one, just because I don't believe in age and aging, I believe in evolution, and I see my body as an evolutionary possibility. And Bowspring has been and access consciousness as well, like the body processes, the energetic modalities that I practice, have both been a huge contribution to my body getting greater every day and being able to unwind and undo things rather than like have, stuckness and limitation further kind of like driven into the system. But I had to get out of the linearity in order to do that. I didn't know that I was driving patterns of weakness deeper into my body with the yoga that I was doing. And I'm not saying yoga is wrong by any means. Every body is so different. I'm just sharing what has occurred for me. And I know there's other people that have had this experience as well, where, there are these areas that get compromised and you don't even know it. And then you go to do something else and you're like, whoa, I didn't know I could not do that, And in that respect, this idea, this energy of warping the line, it's incredibly humbling. Like I said, the first time I tried doing a stand on one leg, Bowspring style, I couldn't do it. And I used to be able to do it no problem in yoga, but I was tucking my butt in yoga. With Bowspring, you don't. You lift it, you mound it, you engage it, and it was like, I can't do that like this. It was so humbling. And it's the same with business. When you warp the line, when you go off of your path, when you innovate and you go stretch into a new area or a new way of creating, it can be very humbling, because you're no longer the expert in that way of doing things. You have to put yourself in a vulnerable position where it's time to learn some new things and get some new experience and, try out some new possibilities in the marketplace and see what occurs. And it may go, it may not, So there's this vulnerability and humility that comes with warping the line in any area of your life that is such a gift to the forward motion with your body, with your business, with your life and living. Trying new things, giving up the way of doing things, the structures, the habits, the things that are just ingrained into our everyday, how we function, what we do with our time even. When you start to veer off of that and go to this like curvy, exploratory, primal, warping the line reality, it's really incredible what kicks in. But as I said, not without a good dose of humility a lot of the time, and vulnerability, and being confronted with the weakness that we have carved in to our lives, to our businesses, and going, you know what, I can strengthen this. I can play and I can strengthen this, and I can continue to play in this more, fluid, agile, innovative space, and more in this curvy space with moving your body, if it were. Continue to play in those spaces and find entirely new ways of being, new ways of functioning, new ways of creating, perhaps even becoming an innovator in your field, that is totally different than anything anybody else is doing, which gives you a creative edge in so many ways in the business world. I mean, innovation is absolutely, it's so essential to business these days, and it's life-giving. Warping the line and going off of the linear path, it's so life-giving, and you have to have the courage to explore it. And I love how when I explore these energies with my body, it translates into my whole life, and going, okay, where else can I warp the line, as a parent, as a lover, as a partner, as a friend, as a coworker, as a business owner, as a facilitator, whatever I do. I mean, even this podcast, I was like, this is going to be a funny name, but let's do it. Let's warp the line, and see what it creates. And you can't be attached to the outcome of it. You have to just see where it takes you, and you'll know, there's so much intuition involved in all of these things, body, business, and otherwise, that we don't often speak to and address. And yet, people that are the seekers of the world have incredible intuition and awareness of what is going to work. And if you are willing to listen to that and follow it, it makes it all so much easier. And just be curious and ask questions and make different choices to warp the line. So I hope this was a contribution to just a fun little, extrapolation into non-linearity with business and bodies and living, as we do here on the Entrepreneurial Biome. And I am actually going to be doing some Bowspring online classes, more movement stuff. Bowspring online, I have an introduction class. I have a series starting. I also have a Be Moved class. That is a beautiful class. I'm so excited to explore a lot of these things. That's going to be happening live over the summer in Boulder and in Chicago and perhaps in Spain and Seattle and where else. If you want me to come and reach out and shoot me a message, I may come to your neck of the woods. Yeah, just so many cool ways to continue playing with all of this. And who knows when you're listening to this anyway, but you can find all that stuff on my website, heathernichols.com. And just really grateful for this Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. It's been, gosh, no, not a year yet. It's been, I guess it'll be a year, and it's been probably 9 months of doing this every week, and I just so enjoy it. So thank you for listening and being here and being you. I'll catch you next time. Thank you for joining me for the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. For more resources, check out my website at heathernichols.com and my social media channels as well. Have a beautiful day, and remember that your business thrives when you do.